Well, the main thing is I just wanted to have a chance to publicly say thank you, because I think Hillary will go down as one of the finest Secretary of States we've had. It has been a great collaboration over the last 4 years. I'm going to miss her.
President Obama and Hillary Clinton sharing a warm and wonderful moment in prime time. The 60 Minutes interview mostly getting raves from the mainstream media, but also some criticism about what could be a squandered opportunity to ask hard questions. CBS correspondent Steve Kroft reacted to the critics.
I've been doing these interviews with him since a few weeks before he declared his candidacy. So I covered him during the campaign and have kept doing it in the White House. But I think it's a question of fairness. We have not, I think he knows that we're not going to play gotcha with him, that we're not going to go out of our way to make him look bad or stupid, and we'll let him answer the questions.
That sound you hear might be Mike Wallace rolling over in his grave. No gotcha questions at 60 Minutes? Since when?
I mean, well, since Mike Wallace passed away, that's for sure. Kroft gave the game away there. President Obama or candidate Obama knows that he can come to me and just answer the question. But parentheses, the puffball question. I mean, there's plenty of questions you could ask that are hard, but Kroft didn't ask those. Look, Ron Fournier of the National Journal summed it up. It was like President Obama and Secretary Clinton were like an old, happily married couple just sitting there. One does wonder, though, whether President Obama will ever do that with Vice President Biden.
Here's what Kirsten Powers said earlier, or wrote actually this week in one of her columns. She wrote, "It really was something you would expect from the state-run media. It was that kind of level of propaganda. 60 Minutes was transparently being used as a campaign advertisement. When there are problems all over the world, Judy, was this a squandered opportunity?"
Well, I think it was. I mean, I talked to him about that interview, and he said, look, she had just had 7 hours of testimony on Capitol Hill. I was not going to be able to draw her out any further on Benghazi, but there were so many other issues he could have asked her about. Connor Friedersdorf of The Atlantic called it an embarrassing failure, and what he did was compare it to Scott Pelley's interview with George Bush, which was scathing. 19 questions like machine gun rattle attack, and you compare that to earlier 60 Minutes stuff, and you have to say, is this the choice we all here would have made?
Juan, let me read you something from Michael Tomasky that he wrote on the Daily Beast. "Most Americans are cheering for them," meaning the president and the former outgoing Secretary of State, "and hence most Americans probably wanted a softball interview. We have thus passed an important portal in American politics. Democrats are now the regular guys. Conservatives are the weirdos." Is that the new meme, Warren?
Well, I think that's right. You know, I think that if you were to check with people about what they wanted that Sunday night, I think that, you know, they didn't think it was the moment to put the president and Mrs. Clinton on the grill with regard to foreign affairs and foreign policy. They know what those people stand for. But, I mean, it is striking that the questions were softballs. I mean, it was a love fest. I don't think there's any question about that. But I will say this. News management in Washington is de rigueur for everybody, not just President Obama. I think back to Mike Deaver with President Reagan. And the idea that people seek out forums where they feel they're not going to get what Jim and others have called the gotcha question, I think for the politician, that's what they want.
Rick, we noted you served as a press spokesman under Republican secretaries of state. Would 60 Minutes have done that kind of interview with any of your bosses?
No way. There's just no way. That never would have been done. Here's the missed opportunity. When you have the President of the United States and the Secretary of State sitting next to each other, you have to corner them. You have to be able to ask them about Iran and the negotiations, and Syria and what we're doing or not doing, or why aren't we helping France in Mali? The White House wouldn't be able to say at that point, oh, the State Department will give you more details, or the State Department wouldn't be able to say that policy decision hasn't been made by the White House. It's the perfect opportunity, and yet nothing was done. It really is the reason why political reporters should never be reporting on foreign policy. They don't get it. They don't understand it.
And then there was the president's interview with the New Republic, in which he was grousing about this network in particular. He said if a Republican member of Congress is not punished on Fox News for working with a Democrat on a bill of common interest, then you'll see more of them doing it. Apparently, Judy, he's asking that we ask tough questions.
Well, here it is, the New Republic, you know, the cover. He is not pleased. The emperor is not pleased. The problem is Chris Hayes, who has spent a lot of money, very young, made a lot of money, new publisher, trying to revive a really great institution, is not doing it any favors by asking these softball, how do you feel about your second term questions? Let's get tough here. If you're going to save a magazine, save it for something.
Especially when the world's imploding.
It's possible that Steve Croft will retire and Chris Hughes could take over. He's young enough. He could be
Right.
very long career in puffy interviews on television as well as in magazines.
Trying to be the Chris Matthews Thrill Up the Thigh Award man.
Well, but hold on, because I think what John said is right. He took shots right here at Fox. And this happens before in what he takes to be a supporter. Chris Hayes is a supporter, as I understand it.
He was a donor, a major donor,
so
and an organizer.
right. So this is truly a favorable, friendly environment. And what he does is
journalism.
he says that Fox is putting, and Rush Limbaugh and right-wing media is putting pressure on Republican politicians and therefore urging them to obstruct his agenda. I think this is very revealing. I don't know about you guys, but to me, this tells you how this president views the media universe. And I think this is part of a long-standing campaign by the Obama campaign to label Fox as illegitimate and not a true source of news and not a real news source.
There's a fellow who was influential in Obama's early career. Oh yeah, Saul Alinsky, who talked about you isolate the enemy, just as you're saying. This is back to Anita Dunn 3 years ago.
That's been the pattern throughout the first
So I
term,
think
at
they
least.
did make some news.
And where's the pushback from the mainstream media? You, the White House, do not have the right to delegitimize people with whom you disagree. Silence.